This is a message for the Christians who are like me. Okay, I am not a white Christian nationalist. I believe we're all talking about the same thing, so I will never put down a person of a different faith, a person of a different religious practice, just because, again, we're talking about the same thing. I will stand in solidarity with my kings and queens of the LGBTQIA plus community, because that community has shown me more love, compassion, and kindness and friendship than any Christian ever has. So anything that goes directly against them goes directly against me. You feel me? I stand in solidarity with women who want to take charge over their own bodies and their reproductive rights, because I am a human being that has compassion and empathy, and I would rather focus on, prevention than trying to force women into having children that they're not equipped to have. Okay, so I'm talking about those type of Christians. I'm talking about the Christians who will welcome the immigrants, who don't give a rat's ass if someone's undocumented or not. And part of my French, because God made me just the way I'm supposed to be. Anyway, we're in trouble. Christianity is in trouble in America right now. It has been hijacked. It's been corrupted. It's serving an agenda that goes directly against God and Christ and what he taught us to do. And we're in trouble. I am not perfect, nor will I ever pretend to be perfect, but his message is loud and clear in my mind, and it directly impacts my actions. And my actions are to lead in love, to be a beacon of hope and light in a world that's cast into darkness. And the sad thing is the people who are putting out the most darkness are our own brothers and sisters in Christ. And we're in trouble because they are winning. Evil is winning. I'm gonna cry. I already feel it. Here's the thing. I have tried to convince myself that God doesn't exist because I've been through too much. I've seen too much. I see people work so hard to get nothing, and I see the corruption and the greed, and I see the hate, and I'm like, there's no way that this omnipotent being exists if he allows these things. And my path, the last few years has gone a different direction in terms of my faith. And one of the biggest things I had to do was I had to detach myself away from people and focus on my relationship with God directly, because people ruin everything. But if I put two together, if I put God and people and his followers together, I would not believe in Jesus. I would not believe in God, because I see what they do in his name, and it goes against everything that I believe directly. It goes against everything that I was taught, and I can't stand for that. But all the times that I tried to convince myself that God didn't exist, there was two things that always brought me back. Number one, I'm that person, but it was nature. This is why I want to move back to the ocean, looking out into the ocean, or looking at the night sky and looking at its vastness, its power, its beauty. I'm like, God exists if he created this. Number two, which is the most important one, it's the people that I encounter that are truly so kind, who are good-natured and good-hearted, who truly care about people with no hidden agenda, with no self-serving sense of righteousness. They're good people, they're kind people just because that's the way they were made. And those are the type of people that we need to be. Those are the type of people that need to be so present in this world of darkness, to not only overcome the darkness of what we were taught, but the darkness that our own Christian brothers and sisters are inflicting as well. Our love needs to be so loud and so powerful that it counteracts everything that they are doing. Because, like I said, they're winning. Their evil agenda is winning. And I don't blame anyone from turning away from God. I don't blame anyone from turning away from what the Bible has said, because, I've been conflicted this past year. It led back to the election, and I had even put a video out that I was like, I ugly cried. I hadn't cried that hard in probably a decade, because I see so many of my own Christian brothers and sisters choosing to follow the most despicable human being on the planet. excuse me, my video cut off, but then to elevate a person who spoke directly against Black people, trans people, gay people, people of a different faith, all the people that I mentioned in my video that I stand in solidarity with, because as I am a child of God, so are they. You know what I mean? To see so many people elevate him as a man of God, as the example of how we should be acting, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I even got into a verbal altercation with a girl in my comments. It is what it is. And of course, like a coward, they always delete their thread. So it deleted my response to her, but she was saying that she acts a certain way because of what the Bible said. And I was like, same twin, I act the same way. I believe the same way because of what the Bible tells me. Please tell me why your interpretation is more valid than mine, when my interpretation tells me to love all my neighbors, to treat the foreigner like family because they are a child of God, to feed the hungry and to house the homeless, to help the poor, to love everyone, because again, we are all God's children, to extend the same grace and mercy that was extended to me outward. I was like, why, when you say you think differently, why do you think that your interpretation is more valid than my interpretation? My interpretation, I will stand 10 toes down on it because I lead in love. I choose to act in love. And again, I'm not perfect. I know I need to treat my enemies better. And if I choose to want to have these certain conversations, if I choose to want to have, again, this constructive dialogue, I know that I'm going to need to tone down my fire. You know what I mean? The way I react to things. I know that 100%, but I will never apologize for standing with people. I'm not standing with hatred. I'm not standing or accepting anything that tells me to act the opposite of love. I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And I love the internet. I do. Social media is a gift and a curse, because I know there's a lot of us who are feeling the same thing, and we're feeling so lost. We're feeling crazy. I don't know. There's not another word for it. I feel crazy because I'm like, how can we read the same thing, read the same scriptures, read the same passages of what Jesus said and completely interpret them so differently, for us to act so differently? I'm telling you, I feel crazy these days. I really do. One of the topics that are really hot right now on the internet is talking about why they chose to decenter religion, decenter Christianity. And my ADHD brain, I always have to make my list. I always have to make my talking points, because I want to make sure that I stay on topic. And so I made a vast list as to why I decentered Christianity and decentered religion. And I was going to make it into like a 2-part, maybe even a 3-part series, because I had so much to say on the matter. But after what has been happening in the past few weeks, I'm like, you know what? We all know why a lot of us have chosen to decenter Christianity and decenter religion. But, I will always believe in Jesus Christ. I will always believe that he died for my sins. I will always believe that if I get up every damn day and try to be the best possible version of myself, the version that he created in his image, that at the end of this, there is reward for me. But with that being said, I will not live a life of hatred, of bigotry, of racism. I will not condemn my own brothers and sisters. I will not choose to see them as lesser or treat them any differently. I refuse. I will not do it. I will not do it. And we need to be louder. We need to be brighter. We need to have our love be so consuming, because we're losing. We're losing this battle. We are losing this battle. Look, I've been in church my entire life, and I've heard this being preached about over and over. So many pastors have said, the battle that lies ahead, they're preparing us for the battle this, the battle that. And, me being me, always questioning everything, I would always think, if Jesus died on the cross for all our sins, we were taught that he conquered the world in that moment. So why would we be battling the world again if he's already conquered it? You know what I mean? But I'm here to tell you that the battle that they're allegedly talking about is here, and it's against our own brothers and sisters in Christ. It's to stand for all God's children, all God's people, because we are all made in his image. And so the people that we're going to be standing against are the people that sit across from us in the pews on Sunday. It's going to be our family members. It's going to be our coworkers. It's going to be, people, if you go to a church and you're part of study groups and Bible groups and all that kind of stuff. Again, I have had to separate myself from church. I do not go to church currently, and I don't think I will for a very long time. But if you're that person, that's what we're being called to do. We have to make a stand. We have to stand up for the people that we were told to stand up for. And that's the hungry, that's the homeless, that's the poor, that's the marginalized groups, it's the minority groups, it's the foreigner. It's those are the people that we were meant to stand with and to serve. So you can't tell me any differently. And if you believe differently, you're not believing the teachings of Christ. You're not going with the teachings of Christ. I'm gonna leave with this little story time. A few years ago, again, I've been referring to, my journey the past few years and how that's impacted my relationship with God. I was lost, like I've been for a lot of my life, and I was going to church, and I was in turmoil, so, what do Christians do when they need to just spend time with the Creator? They go to church. And so at the time I was pursuing music, and things weren't working out. And I was like, God, I know that I'm meant to be a voice of my generation. That's been something that you've put in my heart at a very young age, but I'm hitting roadblocks. Nothing seems to work out. And the voice of God in my head is like a sassy black man. If you watch True Blood, it's like Lafayette Reynolds, it's like a Billy Porter, very sassy black man. And he was like, who said that was through music though? And I was like, oh my God, what do you mean it's not through music? And it makes sense. My generation of musicians and singers, I'm in the generation of Adele and Ariana Grande. I'm not going to be a vocal singer voice of my generation, right? He put me on a different path to talk about things, again, I want to have my own podcast, talk show, whatever. So I know that it is crystal clear to me what type of voice of my generation I'm meant to be. But so I go to church, right? I make it to my destination. So I go to church, and, the worship team is doing their thing. And as a singer, I've never felt compelled to be on a worship team. People find out I'm a singer in church, and that's the first thing they want me to do is you need to try out for the worship team. You need to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, because, I don't deal well with politics of anything, but church politics are the worst. And I know all it's going to take is for someone to look at my Instagram and see me in my short dress. I stroll up to church, in my jeans, aviators, red lipstick with my leather jacket on. You know what I mean? I don't fit the aesthetic of what a worship team leader or someone on the worship team would look like, and I'm okay with that. My spirit's okay with that. Anyway, so I'm sitting in church and I'm in turmoil, and I'm like, God, I'm looking at this praise and worship team. I was like, God, if this was the way you wanted to use me, how come you didn't make me like them? Why did you make me so different? Why did you make me the way that I am? If I was meant to be used and impact people like they were, I was like, it would have been so easy. It would have been so easy if you put the same desires in my heart that you put in theirs. This would have been so much easier for me. And I was in turmoil because I was like, what am I doing here? I know that I'm meant to impact people. I'm meant to impact lives. I'm meant to use my voice. What is going on here? Why did you make me this way as opposed to making me like them? I was going through it. I was in turmoil. There's no other word for it. Sorry. My nose started bleeding out of nowhere. How interesting. I haven't had nosebleeds like that since I was a child. But anyway, that's not going to stop me from saying what I need to say. But anyway, so I was in turmoil because I was asking God why he didn't make me like them, why he didn't make me like everyone else in that church, why he didn't put the same desires in my heart, right? And so the pastor comes, to say his message, and I'm sitting there bawling my eyes out like I was just crying this entire service. And his sermon that day was talking about how Christianity is set to die out within a generation. And so he was like, do you want to know why it's set to die out in a generation? He had quoted this like really popular evangelist who was saying that, and I don't remember the evangelist. And so that perked up my ears, because I was like, what is this man finna say is the reason as to why Christianity is going to die out within a generation? And what he said stayed with me. He was saying it was because of us, as in Christians, because we're choosing to lead in hate more than we're choosing to lead in love. He went to talk about also a generational divide, that there's generational division within the church because the older people expect a revival to look like the way it looked in their generation. The younger generation doesn't care about a church. It doesn't care about four walls. It doesn't care about, things like that. We want to be out in the streets dealing with people. We are the digital age, so we would rather talk on a podcast, talking on YouTube or whatever we're doing. And the older generations don't like that. They don't like that we have tattoos. They don't like that we may have different colored hair. We don't dress up in church like we did in their generation, right? We are completely different. And I really liked what he was saying, because I was like, okay, so he might be onto something. I'm gonna leave with this, but what he went on to say after that is what has stayed with me, what has rekindled my relationship with God, what has made me really trust the divine timing of Jesus. You know what I mean? He was talking to the older people directly at this point. And he was saying that they don't know what battlefields he has equipped these other people, meaning the younger people. He was like, he made them just the way they were meant to be, even though it's different than what you think they should be. He was like, he made them specifically the way they were meant to be, because he knows what battlefields he is sending them out to. He knows what he has prepared them for. And so not everyone is going to be the same. Not everyone is going to have the same journey, not going to have the same path. He was like, we weren't meant to be cookie cutter Christians, as a lot of people are these days. We weren't meant to just bow down and be sheep and be all the same, because we were prepared for different battlefields. We were prepared for different situations. And so then I was like, okay, God, you heard me. You told me exactly what I needed to hear, that there was nothing wrong with the way that he made me, that the path that he put me on, he made me for that path, and that I wasn't meant to be like them, because I wasn't going to be used like them. I'm not going to be used like them. He made me specifically the way that I'm meant to be, because he knows how he is going to use me. And so if you're one of those Christians out there who feel out of sorts right now because you don't feel like you belong with your other fellow Christian brothers and sisters, you feel like, you're staying at home because you are different, which, the church is missing out on a lot of instruments, on a lot of people that can be used in such impactful ways, because we don't fit the cookie cutter Christian mold. I would rather set that on fire. I'm sorry, I don't fit any mold, and I'm not going to try to fit the Christian woman mold. Sorry. That's not how God created me. That's not how I'm meant to be. So now is the time for you to understand that you're made just the way you're meant to be. You're made for this moment, especially those who have been through so much like I have, who have conquered every battle that's been thrown at them. This is our moment, because we were built for this. We were built for the tension. We were built for adversity. We were built to face darkness head on and come out winning.